Hi guys, welcome to Wednesday night service here at Life Point Church in Lebanon, Missouri. We are so excited that you guys joined with us, that you're tuning in. I know that things are kind of crazy right now, and we are just so thankful that you took a few minutes to spend some time with us. I hope you got a chance to enjoy our Easter service. It was something special, and if you didn't get an opportunity to see it, we're actually going to premiere it one more time on Saturday night this coming weekend. So make plans to join us once again for our Easter service on Saturday night. It's a replay, and it was really, really good, really powerful. But we are here tonight. We're here to worship God, and we're going to hear a message from Matt, and it's going to be just amazing. His testimony is something incredible, and we just wanted to worship with you a little bit here from our home. This is Carrie and our boys, Case and Ty, and I'm Nathan, and we're just excited to be able to worship with you this evening. So let's pray, and we'll get started. Father, we come before you tonight. We thank you so much for allowing us this opportunity to be online and to worship you together. God, things are kind of crazy that we're not in the church building, but God, we are the church, each and every one of us, and we just believe that you're doing powerful things through this crazy season. God, we love you, and it's in your name we pray. Amen. Here we go. Whoa.
Hey guys, my name is Sarah. We want to welcome you guys and thank you for joining us online tonight. I want to remind you that on our CR page there is a Zoom meeting link. There is one for females and one for males. We want to encourage you to get on those Zoom meetings. Make sure you read over the guidelines. If you cannot get connected, send us a direct message and we will do our best to get you connected. We also want to say that we miss you guys a bunch and we know that it's a struggle. So if you are struggling, reach out to your accountability partners and your sponsors, or even me here at the church. We would love to hear from you guys. I hope you have a great night.
Glory is yours. Blessing, honor, strength, and power. Yours alone now and forever. Love this world could never stop. There is no one like our God, reaching down to touch the broken. Mercy breaking through this moment. Every heart at last proclaim, worthy is your name. Oh God, the glory is yours, the kingdom is come and the battle is over. Jesus, in your name we rise and the glory is yours, the glory is yours. Throngs of angels watch and wonder. On that day when time is over, we're so thankful that the glory is yours tonight. God, we thank you that you are here and that you are with us. I count on one thing, the same God who never fails will not fail me now. He won't fail me now in the waiting. The same God who's never late is working all things out, working all things out. Even through all of what we're dealing with currently, God, our lives have been changed and altered through this. But God, you knew all about it before we had any idea. God, you knew everything that was going on. And God, even in this time, we're choosing to say, yes, I will. Yes, I will lift you high in the lowest valley. Yes, I will bless your name. Yes, I will sing for joy when my heart is heavy all my days. Oh, yes, I will for all my days. Oh, yes, I will for all my days. Oh, yes, I will. Guys, thank you so much for joining us tonight. We look forward to what Matt has to say in his testimony.
Well, hello. It's good to be here with you guys today. My name is Matt, and I'm a faithful believer in Jesus Christ who struggles with addiction and self-worth, and I get to serve here at LifePoint. I'm very excited to get to share with you part of my story this evening. This has actually been one of my favorite parts of Celebrate Recovery from the very beginning is the testimonies, and it's because of a verse in Revelation 12:11, as a matter of fact, which tells us how we can beat the devil. And it says, they triumphed over him, the devil, by the blood of the Lamb and the word of their testimony. They did not love their lives so much as to shrink from death. See, we beat Satan with the blood of Christ and the story of how God is working in our own lives. We can beat the one that kills us, that wants to kill us, by standing with courage and proclaiming our love for Christ. So our testimonies are part of the equation, and they are powerful. So I'm humbled and thankful to be able to share part of my story with you this evening. Now, last week we talked about our crossroads lesson and the importance of doing a daily inventory to assess our actions each day, why we do certain things, what makes us do those things, and making amends quickly whenever needed. And one of the verses we actually looked at from that lesson is found in 1 Corinthians 10:12, and it says, so if you think you are standing firm, be careful that you don't fall. And I love this verse, and I love how full of truth the Bible is. I mean, how many of us have thought that we're standing on solid ground in the world, only to find that we have no ground to stand on, right? I mean, for myself, how many times have I known that I was standing firm only to find myself falling down at the slightest change? And the answer is a lot. I found myself there a lot. Even today, I find myself there. But the more I lean on God, the more I seek Jesus, the more I listen to the Spirit, the less I find myself in these difficult situations. And it is crucial for me to seek God's will every day and in every situation. In fact, I try to keep an ongoing, ever vigilant inventory all the time, seeing the good and the bad in the moment. I haven't always done this, but it's what I try to do today. When I was a kid, my parents split up when I was 2 years old. I don't have a memory of actually them being married. And I was raised by my mom. My mom actually remarried a couple of times after my dad, and this caused us to move around a lot. So I changed schools pretty regularly. Every 2 years or so, I would go to a different school. And I say all of that to say that I don't have any lifelong friends. I sort of lack those deep relational roots that a lot of people have. This also skewed my view of romantic relationships Now, I've thought about this a lot. I believe that my mom was looking for a good man, but she was looking for a man to be a good dad to me, and maybe not so much looking for a man to love her and be a good husband for her. And so when things didn't work out with the men that she married, we struck out on our own. Now, it was only a couple of times, but neither one of those marriages worked out. And I know that it's not my responsibility for the choices that my parents made, but this is part of my life, and it did shape my view of certain things, relationships specifically. And that view was that if a relationship isn't working for whatever reason, the answer is to leave. I also believe that as we grow, because we're made in God's image, we begin to learn and experience right and wrong. And because of that, as we grow, we gain more and more responsibility for our choices. So when I was 13, I remember my best friend at the time, he stole a joint from his brother, and he said, "Hey, Matt, we should go in the woods and smoke this." And this is a guy I looked up to. I thought he was a pretty cool guy. And he's also the guy that taught me to smoke cigarettes. So you should always listen to that guy when making important life decisions. and I did listen to him, unfortunately. And we went in the woods and smoked this joint. And I liked it a lot because I didn't get high. It had no effect on me. Apparently, this is something that happens with some folks, is the first few times you smoke marijuana, it doesn't affect you at all. And so that was my story. And I thought that was great because I can be cool. I can be cool like my buddy over here, right? But also have none of the bad or ill adverse side effects of the marijuana. And that was indeed the case for 3 days. And on that third day, we had skipped lunch at school. This was in 9th grade. And we went across the road to this little park and smoked up. And I did get high. And I liked that a lot more than not getting high, let's be honest. So I liked it so much that I basically just dove in feet first. I would get to school early, and the way the buses ran, I got there about a half hour before school started. So we'd go across the street and get high, and then we'd skip lunch and get high. And then after school, my bus left after school, let out, and so we'd go over there and get high. And then when I got home, I'd go down the street and I'd get high. And that's what I did for my entire 9th grade year. And I don't care who you are or what you say, you smoke that much weed in that short amount of time, and it will change the way that you view the world. It'll change the way that you think about things. It'll change the way you act. It certainly will change the way that you look. And it did me. And my parents aren't stupid. They saw these changes. And so they got together and decided that I would leave my mom's house and move out to my dad's house. And he lived in this little town in Georgia called Snellville, Georgia. It's a real place. You can look it up. And I moved out there the summer before 10th grade, and I was pretty angry. I left a lot of friends, right? And I was very angsty and threatened to run away, and lots of crazy stuff happened. But that summer, I also met someone who's a good friend to this day, as a matter of fact. His name is Jay, and he was very different than me. He lived a couple of doors down in the neighborhood, and he dressed in slacks and button downs. He was very preppy and, did his hair. I, of course, had long, shaggy hair and torn up jeans and t-shirts and that kind of thing. So we were very different in the way we appeared, but he befriended me and invited me to church. Now, I had not really spent any time in church at this point in my life. In 2nd and 3rd grade, somehow I ended up in a Lutheran school, which was unusual because we didn't go to church. We went to church maybe a handful of times. I remember going to a couple of different Presbyterian churches as a kid, but we didn't really frequent church. And so church was not a big part of my life. And at this Lutheran school, actually, just to give you some insight into kind of my spiritual upbringing, I remember a time they were teaching about the wide road to hell and the narrow road to heaven. And that's not something I had ever heard as a 2nd or 3rd grader. And so I was very excited about this, learning this new thing. And I went home and told my mom, and she said, "Son, that's not true. Everybody goes to heaven if they're a good person." And so that was just sort of indicative of my spiritual upbringing, is be a good person and you will prosper and succeed and all of that kind of stuff. So anyway, so he invited me to church, and I went, and it was the First Baptist Church of Snellville, Georgia. It was a good Southern Baptist church. A lot of hellfire and brimstone, really powerful preaching. The preacher was amazing. And I heard some stuff about a guy I had not heard much about in my life, really nothing. His name was Jesus. And I made a decision. I decided that I didn't want to go to hell, that I wanted heaven forever. And so I got saved when I was 14, right before my 10th grade year. And that was a great year. I made some good friends and got involved with church, went several times a week, got involved with the youth group. We did Wednesday night visitations, which was way out of my comfort zone, but we did it. And it was a really good year, but it was also, it was kind of a disappointing year as well, because I had made this big decision in my life and didn't really have any guidance on how to live that out. There's a thing in church that we call discipleship. It's kind of learning how to follow God. And they didn't have much discipleship at this church. It felt like I got saved and I got baptized and then they sort of slapped me on the butt and said, good luck. So I didn't know how to read a Bible. I didn't know how to pray. I would ask some questions, but the answers I got were like, well, you have to have a quiet time, or this was a good one, go to your prayer closet. And as a 14 going on 15-year-old boy, going into the closet to talk to some strange deity was very strange. That was not a thing that I was comfortable with. Also, they would say, read your Bible until it speaks to you. And that's actually really good advice. But every other book I'd ever read in my life, I started at the beginning. And so I did that same thing with the Bible. And Genesis was good, and Exodus was good, and then we got into things like Leviticus and Deuteronomy and Numbers, and I actually made it through into Numbers, and that's not where a 14, 15-year-old's head is at. And so I shut that book, and I kept it shut for many, many years thereafter. I also noticed with a lot of the friends I was making in the church in high school, 14, 15, 16-year-old kids, that they seem to be doing a lot of the same things and sometimes worse things than my non-Christian friends, the non-Christian friends I was making in school. And it seemed worse because my Christian friends are supposed to know better, right? But they were just doing drinking and sleeping around. And I mean, you name it, it was all happening in the church. Not in the church, but you know what I mean, within that group of people. So I mean, long story short, I walked away from the church. I thought to myself, if this is what this Christian life is all about, is saying a bunch of pretty things on Sunday and then the other 6 days of the week just pretty much doing whatever I wanted, and then coming back to church on Sunday and saying some pretty things, that I don't know that I really wanted to be a big part of that. And so I walked away from the church at that point. And sadly, I spent the next nearly 20 years trying to fill that hole that I had filled when I was 14. I basically just doing the same old thing. I started sleeping around pretty quickly. I lost my virginity when I was 16. And remember, my view of relationships was when something doesn't work out, then you just leave. And when you couple that with sleeping around, that we have a problem, because God wired us in a way that when we have sex with someone, ideally husband and wife, those people are bonded, physically bonded. Chemicals are released in the brain and you're actually bonded with that person. And so when I would sleep with someone and then leave and then hook up with someone else and then leave them and do this over and over again, I was really just practicing how to get divorced from my future spouse, right? I mean, that's what that is when things don't work out, let's just leave. And so unfortunately, that was the example I had in life, and that's the example I followed, and that was the wrong example to follow. So I did that for many, many years. In college, after high school, I discovered that I also really enjoyed drinking. In fact, I discovered that I have an addictive personality, so alcohol filled that hole for quite a while. I started drinking beer. Never really graduated to hard liquor. I enjoyed vodka every now and again, but beer was my main thing, and continued drinking really for the next almost 20 years, either at the bar or at home by myself. As I got older, it became more at home by myself than at the bar. So I ended up in my 20s getting a job in the restaurant business. And I remember being at work. I was a line cook, and my first night there, one of the servers asked me what I wanted to drink. And I said, well, I don't know, sweet tea or Mountain Dew, something's fine. She was like, no, what beer do you want to drink? I was like, oh, Bud Light, I guess. I don't know. I don't remember what I had. But they brought me a glass of beer into the kitchen, and I thought that was great. They told me it was my shift beer. And so after we got done closing the kitchen down, we went and sat at the bar in that restaurant, and we had 6 or 7 shift beers. And then we went off to the actual bar and, stayed up late and did crazy dumb things. And so that sort of became a way of life for me. I would work and then drink at night and sleep around, and work and drink at night and sleep around. And that was the cycle I got into. And it was, I thought it was great and fun. And as I look back on it, it was a waste of my time, a waste of my life, really. So I ended up meeting a really pretty cool girl in 2004. We got engaged, and I moved out to Denver from Atlanta, where I was living. And my sister lived in Denver, and this was actually her best friend that I ended up being engaged to. And it was a good relationship. We had a lot in common. We got along. We joked and had fun and all of that. But I was a very selfish person at that point in my life. And again, when things didn't work, I would leave. And so, 1 or 2 things didn't go the way I wanted them to. And so I ended up breaking off the engagement. I will say, though, that there's a passage in Romans 8:28. It says, and we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose. And I wouldn't say that I was following God at that point, but I believe wholeheartedly that God put me in Denver at that time for a reason. Because my sister invited me to church, much like my friend Jay had done years ago. And I thought I'd be nice to my sister and say, hey, yeah, I'll go to church with you and, be a good brother and all of that. And so I went to church. It was this little church called Red Rocks Church that met in this kind of like empty conference room at this outdoor mall in Denver. Later, they moved over to their original location, which was in a creepy theme park. But when I first went, they were at this mall. And these guys talked about Jesus in a very different way than I had ever heard. Now, remember, I got saved when I'm 14, but I've literally now spent the last almost 20 years of my life, from 15 on up to this point, arguing against Christianity. Because I saw this hypocrisy and I saw these things in the church that I didn't agree with. And so I thought that my way was the best way. And so I've literally spent all this time arguing against Christianity, but I never really dug into Christianity and looked at what Jesus taught and looked at the Bible and explored the truth that's there. And so these guys, they talked about Jesus very differently, like he was in the room with them, like he was their friend, and they could talk about their problems and they could talk about their successes, and he would cheer them on and he would give them strength through difficulties and all of this. And I had never, ever heard that before. And so, or if I had, I hadn't paid attention. And so I began to read for myself, to seek, if you will. And there's a lot of truth in seek and you will find, because as I saw it, I began to find God in many different places. I found God in my relationship with my parents, with my sister, with those people around me. Now listen, I gotta say something here. I was still drinking. I was a functioning alcoholic at this point in my life. My typical day was work, still in the restaurant. I worked for the same restaurant in Denver as I did in Atlanta. And after work, I would pound a case of beer every night, smoke a half pack to a pack of cigarettes every night. Sometimes that was at the bar, sometimes it was at home by myself, more often at home by myself, but that's what I did. And when I rededicated my life and started running after God, I wish I had that story that everything was washed away and it was all brand new and my life completely turned the other direction. But that's not my story. My story is the story of a journey and gradual change. And so I continued drinking a case of beer as I pursued God. And I continued smoking a half a pack to a pack of cigarettes a day as I pursued God. But I say all of this to say that it's okay to be broken and be a Christian. In fact, all of us are broken. We are all broken, imperfect people pursuing a perfect God. Know that. Please know that. The journey that we're on is just that. It's a journey. It's not a destination. I'm constantly working on getting closer to God, on being more like Jesus every day. And every day I fail. But every day I succeed also. And every day I get a little bit closer to God. I believe that every choice that we make, every decision that we make is a crossroads of some sort. A chance to follow Jesus or not, a chance to do the right thing or the wrong thing. When I was 13, I was at a crossroads and I chose to smoke a joint with my friend in the woods. 3 days later, I was at a crossroads when I did get high to continue doing that or not. When I was 14 and got saved, when I was 15 and was ready to walk away from the church, I was at a crossroads. Do I pursue this on my own or do I leave the church? When I was through my teens and 20s and into my 30s, every time I cracked a beer, I was at a crossroads. Do I continue with this alcoholism? And I'm not an idiot. I know I was addicted to alcohol. I was an alcoholic. Do I continue down this road or do I stop and go a different direction? Every single choice that I made through those years was at a crossroads. And more often than not, I made the wrong choice. I made the bad choice. But as I walk with Jesus, I find that I am able to make better choices each and every day. So that's my question, I guess, for you guys tonight, is what choice will you make? Maybe tonight that choice is to, in fact, follow Christ for the first time, to ask him into your heart, to ask him to forgive you for the wrong things that you've done in your life, and to lead you and guide you in your life. That's an easy prayer to say. You can say what I just said. Just ask him those things and he will do it, right? Maybe it's this crossroads, this choice is to make amends with somebody that you're not ready to make amends with, but God is ready for you to make amends with. Maybe it's taking the initiative, taking the step, making contact with that person. Maybe it's to stop doing something that you've been doing. Like for me, nearly 20 years of alcoholism. There was a time that I had to stop doing that. And I'm proud to say that in a few months, I will have 5 years clean and sober. So maybe it's that time. Maybe it's time for you to start doing something that God's calling you to do. I don't know what that answer is for you, but the question is, what choice will you make? John Paul Sartre said, "We are our choices." You are a conglomeration of the choices that you've made through your lives. And we have the ability to make choices. That's the beauty of free will. So let's make good choices, God choices. That's it, guys. The choice is yours. So I just want to thank you for listening, and I hope you're able to get something out of my testimony. I pray that it spoke to someone this evening. I'm also pray that you're able to connect this evening, whether that's through a Zoom call or even a phone call or a simple text message, able to discuss how you are making better choices and moving closer to God. Guys, thank you so much and have a blessed evening. God bless you.